back.
Usually, I would have a review for a movie like this out early, but has problems, and I wanted to process this film. And I don't usually take notes in all of these reviews or videos, but in the case of this movie though, I had to do it. And we have 2 pages of notes, so there is enough for me to talk about. So it's time to get to the third and final film in the Unbreakable or Eastrail 177 trilogy. Let's jump into it. What's going on, y'all, my nerds and geeks? This is Josh, aka the future filmmaker 39480 once again, and I'm finally getting around to reviewing one of my most anticipated of 2019, and that is M. Night Shyamalan's Glass. Now, Glass is the crossover between Unbreakable and Split, and is the third and final film in the Unbreakable trilogy, as I said in the intro. This is once again written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, stars Bruce Willis, James McAvoy, Samuel L. Jackson, Anya Taylor-Joy, Sarah Paulson, and Spencer Clark. And the plot of this movie is that we pick up after the events of Split. So the ending of Split showed us Bruce Willis returning, and in this movie, at the beginning of the film, Kevin kidnaps these 4 cheerleaders, and then you see Bruce Willis back as David Dunn and his son, who's now older, played by Spencer Clark. They are basically protecting the city, right? So Bruce Willis and the 24 personality of the Beast, they have a head-to-head fight after he saves the cheerleaders, and this leads into them getting captured by this psychiatrist played by Sarah Paulson from American Horror Story. And so she's trying to make make Bruce Willis, Samuel Jackson, and James McAvoy, almost Anya Taylor-Joy, believe that they're not heroes, that it's all in their head. But Elijah also has secrets and plans that may hold the key to both James McAvoy and Bruce Willis. And that's basically my version of the synopsis of Glass. Now, going into Glass, I was very excited to see the film because this is it will not only bring James McAvoy and Anya Taylor-Joy back from Split, but it also brings back key characters from the Unbreakable film. And from the trailers, it looked really interesting, and following all the production news on the film on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, I was just excited to see it. And my thoughts on the other M. Night Shyamalan films, I have reviewed them all on my channel, but I'll go over a quick little detail. I love The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense was a fantastic film. I really love the movie, The Sixth Sense, especially Haley Joel Osment's performance. Unbreakable is my favorite of the Unbreakable trilogy, and it's my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film, and that's a very different film from any other superhero movie you've seen. Signs, I don't know why a lot of people don't dislike Signs so much. I enjoy Signs. The Village I thought was okay, but underwhelming. Lady in the Water is a guilty pleasure. The Happening is a bad movie, but it's a guilty pleasure. The Last Airbender, as a guilty pleasure, I can watch it, but as a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender show, it is a complete insult to The Last Airbender. And don't even get me started on After Earth with Jaden Smith and Will Smith, because I hate After Earth. And Split And The Visit and Split, I really like those movies. Those movies were M. Night Shyamalan's returns to form. So, M. Night Shyamalan, I'm very question mark, but he is a good director for the most part. And for basically, I saw a few early reviews from the critics saying it was a letdown, the film overstays its welcome, is disappointing. And some of the audiences has been very polarized on the movie with the critics. This is a movie where I think you'll either like the film or you'll hate the film. But honestly, in my personal view, I love The Glass. I easily think the critics are wrong on this. I think this movie does not deserve a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I do have my issues. But before I go into my issues, I'm going to say what I like first. Let's go into my positives, according to my notes. Let me just say, I think the story of Glass is the most interesting part. You're taking characters from two movies in the original trilogy and you're bringing them into one film, and I think that was a nice way to go, especially from the synopsis I just described. It's a very different superhero film. This is not the MCU movie you would see, or the DC film, or Mission Impossible, or Star Wars. No. This is a different kind of take on a superhero film. The way Unbreakable was a different take on a superhero film. And I have to say that the way the story plays out, especially in the third act, I enjoy that aspect and what they were able to do there. The way M. Night Shyamalan directs this movie is very well handled. He has these clever ways of directing. He always keeps the camera steady. He doesn't shake the camera. You don't use a steady cam. There's no lens flares. There's no crazy weird color scheming, and there's no choppy editing. Even if in his movies there are bad, he does try to have some decent direction. And his writing, especially in this movie, is the strongest aspect. I like the way he writes this film. I like the way each scene is written, especially when in the second act of the movie. And the tie-in to Unbreakable and Split, I really love the tie-ins, because at the end of Split, we all remember that Bruce Willis showed up, and from that moment on, when I saw that the first time I watched Split, I was like, are you telling me what I think you're telling me? And then I said to myself, I'm down. So I love the tie-in to Split and Unbreakable, having the characters from both films back here. I thought that was really well done. Now, the performances of the cast in this movie. First up, you got Bruce Willis as David Dunn. He's now called the Overseer, and I like how his character has changed since Unbreakable. From Unbreakable, he was just a very normal guy who survived a train accident without having an inch of bruises against him. So I really like that aspect of him in that movie. And here, he's a little more older, more wiser, more strong. And you don't get the sense that he doesn't feel over-empowered, over-strong. And it just feels right with his character. And Bruce Willis, once again, does a great job. Lately, Bruce Willis has been slacking in terms of movies. He's not had the best movie choices. But it was good seeing him here, once again, doing it is what he do. And if one of my biggest scares going into Glass was, I thought Bruce Willis was just gonna phone this in, but he actually does a great job here. Even though at his age, he's still a great actor. Die Hard, Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, the guy's a good actor. I gotta hand it to him. He does great in this movie. Samuel L. Jackson, once again as Elijah Prince, as Mr. Glass. He was the mastermind behind everything that happened in the first Unbreakable movie. And seeing Samuel L. Jackson again, even though he's 70 years old at this point, Samuel L. Jackson, the guy still acts his ass off in this movie. He has moments where he's into this villain a lot, and it definitely shows in his performance and into the way he plays his character, especially one scene in particular that involves Luke Kirby's character, who Luke Kirby I do remember from Halloween Resurrection. But we gotta talk about James McAvoy as Kevin. James McAvoy, I've never had a problem with James McAvoy. I liked him in Wanted. I like him in the X-Men First Class movies as Professor Xavier. He's not nearly as good as Patrick Stewart, but considering the fact that he's playing a character like Professor X, he could have done a lot worse. But the way James McAvoy plays all these 24 personalities, Harry, Hedwig, Patricia, Kevin, and then the Beast, all these personalities, they just come together. It's like, and then there's a lot of moments where the one personality, Hedwig, which is the 9-year-old boy who is referenced by Harry Potter, which that made me smile when I first watched them Split, because one of the personalities is named Hedwig, and you know me, I am a Harry Potter fan myself, so that was pretty cool. And then all the different personalities, he changes personalities in this movie. I'm just shocked that he did not get any kind of award for Split, because he deserved some kind of award recommendation, and especially in this movie. But unfortunately, because of the bad reviews, it's just like not gonna happen. And I don't see how come this movie has a 36%. And audiences are hit and miss on it, but all these audiences can sit up here and praise Venom like it's a good movie when you know it's not. There was more fun here than in Venom. Let me just say, Anya Taylor-Joy, it's great seeing her back. She was one of the only few people who survived in Glass besides James McAvoy, because Haley Lou Richardson, her character got killed off, and then the other girl got killed off in Split, and she was pretty badass in the final moments of Split. And you could tell that the character that she plays in this movie, Anya Taylor-Joy, she's been scarred for life. And I loved Anya Taylor-Joy ever since I saw The Witch, even though at first I wasn't a fan of that movie, but now I am. And I think she is one of the most underrated rising stars, and Anya Taylor-Joy is she's very beautiful, and she's gorgeous. And I'm looking forward to seeing her in the New Mutants, because it is supposed to come out in August, but I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping that something works out. But considering the fact that Disney has Fox, I don't know what's gonna happen. But Anya Taylor-Joy in this movie is Casey Cooke. Woo! That girl's gorgeous. Then you have Sarah Paulson from American Horror Story in this movie. Now, another one of my things going into this movie was Sarah Paulson, because if you've seen the channel, you know that I'm just gonna put my cards on the table and say it. I don't care for American Horror Story whatsoever. I tried to get into American Horror Story by watching one episode. I just couldn't get into it. It's weird. I like weird stuff, but American Horror Story is not the kind of weird I'm into, and I just think it's an overrated TV show. You can blast me all you want, but it's my opinion. But Sarah Paulson does a great job in this movie. Spencer Treat Clark and Charlene Woodard, it was great seeing them back. The acting was great in the movie. And the way the cinematography goes in, especially one shot, the way the cinematography plays out. Shyamalan gets some great shots here. It's really amazing. It's really awesome. Every shot in this movie just looks very well handled. And the use of flashbacks from Unbreakable's deleted scenes was also really great. I really like that. Now, the first acts and the second acts are two of my favorite parts of the film. I really love the second act and the third act of this movie. I think the second act has a lot of things going for it. A lot of people say it's just very generic and very bland and but I think there's a lot of enjoyment factor in the first act and the second act respectively. They are amazing third acts. I really love the third acts here. I thought it just really brings out the whole creativeness there, and it just really impresses me a lot in the second third act. As far as technical aspects goes, I have to really praise the editing in this movie, the editor, and the editing work is very well handled. Every single cut and frame is really well handled there, and I think it's just very amazingly done there. The musical score by Dylan West Thompson, I think that's his name. His music is very well done. I really like his music in the film, and the score is really well done. And you do use themes from Split and themes from Unbreakable by James Newton Howard. Now I love the score. I definitely want to listen to the score again. The twists and turns, for the most part, some of them are really fantastic. I didn't see these twists and turns coming. I thought they were just very well executed, very well done, and I think they just looked really cool and looked really amazing. And let me just say, for the action scenes that they have, especially that confrontation between the Overseer, Bruce Willis, and the Beast at the beginning of the movie, this is a very grounded superhero movie. It's more like if you take Watchmen and The Dark Knight Rises and Man of Steel, and you get a much better version of Man of Steel like this. And each twist and turns, I was just sitting there like, I'm surprised the whole time. And the action scenes, for the most part, I think are really well executed. And the fact that this movie is willing to take so many chances impresses me. I really love the fact that this movie is willing to take a lot of chances. That they're willing to go into directions that you wouldn't expect to see in a superhero movie like this. And I think that really comes to terms in this movie. So, M. Night Shyamalan, whether you like him or hate him, you have to appreciate how daring he was trying to go with this film. As much praise as I'm giving this movie, I have to say I do have some problems when it comes to this film. It's not a perfect movie, and it's nowhere near as great as a masterpiece as that first two films in this trilogy. The first negative here is this movie is 2 hours and 9 minutes. It's not very long, but I have to say that the runtime does overstay its welcome a bit. There are some slow spots that does kind of drag. There are some moments where I feel like this could have been cut or get to the point, go to the next scene. Not that it was bad per se, I just felt like that some of these moments in this movie could have been easily trimmed down a little bit. But for the 2 hours and 9 minutes, I was invested for the most part. There are quite a few twists and turns in this movie that does not work for me 100%. And that does go into the problem there. And I do think that there are just a lot of moments where there are, as much as I do like some of the twists and turns that does work, I feel like most of the twists and turns here could have been done better or could have been done a little much more.
Shut up, dude.
Now we have to talk about Bruce Willis' character. I do like him in this movie. I love seeing him back. He did get his time to shine, but my problem with him is that I feel like he didn't get as much to do as the other two main actors. And that is, I guess you could say that's kind of the point, but because this is the third film in the trilogy, and M. Night Shyamalan has confirmed it, saying this is the last movie, and he's not going to do another one. So that does distract me a little bit, because Bruce Willis, I was expecting him to have equally as much screen time as Samuel L. Jackson and James McAvoy, and luckily he does, but I feel like you could have gave him more to do. Now, the character motivation of Sarah Paulson in this movie. Now, like I said, I have nothing against Sarah Paulson as an actress. I liked her in Ocean's 8. I liked her in 12 Years a Slave. I liked her in the stuff I've seen her in. We're not going to include American Horror Story because, like I said, not a fan of it. I'm not into American Horror Story as everybody else. It's just too weird. It's just too weird, too convoluted. It's too much happening in that show. And the fact that that show is still running kind of baffles me a little bit. But I get what her character wanted to do, but her motivation is pretty unjustified there. It doesn't really feel like she did her job. And that's where I have to say that you kinda make Sarah Paulson look a little bit like a fool. But we have to talk about the thing that either a lot of people are going to appreciate or that a lot of people is going to get pissed off at. And that is the ending. Now, when I I only seen this movie once, so when I was watching the ending, I said to myself, this ending sucked. But now, the reason why it took me so long to do this review is because I had to process this whole movie and process this ending. And I am 50-50 on the ending. I do like how ambitious it is. I do like how daring it is. And I do like how interesting M. Night Shyamalan tried to do. I get what he was trying to do. He was trying to be ambitious. He's trying to do something different than what we're used to seeing in most superhero movies nowadays. Kind of like what the Russo brothers was trying to do with Avengers Infinity War Part 1 with Thanos winning at the end, even though that makes me angry too. But what I don't care for in this ending is that you had to kill off all three of your main actors. Now, again, I'm not gonna tear him down, M. Night Shyamalan down for being ambitious, because he is a great filmmaker. I don't see all the hatred that's going towards him as a director. But the way this ending plays out, when you kill James McAvoy's character, when you kill Bruce Willis's character, when you kill Samuel L. Jackson's character, a part of me didn't want to see Bruce Willis' character die because he was very likable, he was very awesome. But and this is coming from a fan of the first Unbreakable and Split, but they had to go this route at some point. They had to go this route. So I will give credit to where credit is due. I just feel like you could have done that ending a lot better. A lot better. It's not like I hate the ending. It's not like it ruins the film for me. I just feel like the ending just... It's just... At the end of the day, the best way I can describe this ending is that I'm very mixed at this ending at best. But who knows? When I watch it again, when it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray combo pack or something, I will appreciate the ending a lot more. And many people will, in a few years or before the end of the year, a lot more people will like this movie a little more. Even though they are gonna. It's kind of like Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Blade Runner, where those movies got mixed reviews and their movies are starting to find their audiences now. But the ending, I'm gonna have to watch the movie again in order for me to really process the ending. But the ending is not too terrible. It's not. I do like how ambitious it was and how intriguing and different it was. I'll give this credit for having an ambitious ending, and I will give Avengers 3 a little credit for how ambitious that ending was, even though they both suffer from the same problem. And I am hoping that Avengers Endgame or Avengers Infinity War Part 2 or Avengers 4 has a better ending. Because if it has an equally as worse ending, yeah. Overall thoughts. Despite the film overstaying its welcome, a few twists and turns that doesn't work, an ending that I'm very mixed on, and the character motivation of Sarah Paulson, and the underusage of Bruce Willis' character just a tad bit, there is a lot more good than bad in this movie. I don't see what critics are saying. I don't see what the Rotten Tomatoes score is saying about this film, because this is not that bad of a movie. I think people are just tending to go overboard on this movie because they want to hate on M. Night Shyamalan again. Do I recommend this movie? Definitely. Because to me, Glass is my favorite film of the year so far. For how ambitious it is, how different it is, how entertaining it is. Like I said, it's not better than the first Unbreakable or even Split, but for the most part, I give this movie credibility for everything that M. Night Shyamalan was wanting to do. From the acting, to the direction, to every single thing that they wanted to do. And that's why Glass, I'm going to give this an epitaphic, which is an A-. Yep, I like it that much. And if you are one of those people who's scared to watch this movie because of the mixed reception, I will say, go in optimistic. Don't listen to the critics, because critics half the time you hate everything half the time, critics, except for your precious freaking Venom, which is getting a sequel. So that was my long-awaited review of Glass. Now, I know it was a long one. I know it took so while to get to it, but it's better late than never. So let me know what you guys think about Glass in the comment section down below. Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you agree with the critics that it's disappointing? Do you think it's entertaining? Is it one of your favorites of the year? I know Techno John 406, he really liked the film. You can check out his review, and you can check out Drum Dumb's review of the film. I will have cards for both of those in up on the screen, and I will link their reviews down below. So, this is Future Filmmaker 39480. You guys keep it cool. We are close to getting to 1K subscribers. And you guys keep it cool as always. Be sure to follow all my social media links. And also, my official Future Filmmaker 39480 website is finally up. So you guys can go check that out. And I will see you guys in the next video enjoying the epic task.